You know, it feels like in the last few weeks there's been a lot of talk about motorcycle safety and things that riders can do to help make themselves survive the average Saturday ride. You've had Ryan from Fort 9 scrambling his huevos with those jeans, and then you had Jen over at Revzilla talking about some habits that you can do to improve your likelihood of not getting into a fatal motorcycle crash. Here's the problem. Those are both things that are incumbent on the rider. I think that there are some bigger things that are outside of the rider's control that will increase rider safety a lot more than just being safe on the bike, and that comes down to laws. Now I know we here in the United States don't love the idea of a new regulation, especially us folks down here in Texas. However, there are some really stupid laws going to the books into the United States here that will end up resulting in more fatalities because our laws are not written by riders, they're written by dummies. I normally make a point of never naming anyone in particular on the channel. I will reference some people's work if I think it's really fun, but this time I'm gonna break that rule. Republican Representative Ryan Gillane here in the state of Texas outlawed lane filtering, lane splitting, and made it legal for motorcycles to ride next to each other within the same lane for no other reason than to just become the #1 bill passing representative. And I promise you, this is going to kill motorcyclists. Now, it just so happens that this guy represents a district that is more populated by javelinas than actual people, so maybe he doesn't understand how motorcycles work, but lane filtering is one of the most effective rules that we can have that increases our safety. And I've got data to back it up. But it's not just here in Texas. In Illinois, my home state, they removed the second Secretary of State's test for teenage riders, 16, 17, and 18. I know that they think that this was just redundancy that they were eliminating, but I promise you the answer to rider safety is not less testing. If you've been following my work for a while, you've probably already guessed that I'm getting ready to talk about the European licensing system, and it might surprise you to hear that I'm a huge fan of this idea. Do I think that every rider should start on a 125 and live the sad life of a French teenager stuck in a stripy shirt and a crippling sense of ennui? No, but the idea of limiting horsepower a new rider can buy makes sense to me. Starting with only 47 horsepower is plenty to have fun and get you up to highway speed no matter what your redneck Uncle Bubbles says. The question isn't, do I support it? The question is, why do I support it?
God, I love this F4i! Oh man, this bike is so dumb, but it's so much fun! But that brings me to kind of an important point, and that is that motorcycling, as much fun as it is really more of a craft than a form of transportation. Sure, they get you from point A to point B, but there is so much higher of a skill ceiling, at least immediately accessible, between motorcycles and cars. Think about it like this. When was the last time you really had to think about your body position on your way to the office? If you're driving a car, that answer is never. But if you're on your motorcycle, probably pretty frequently. And that's where Jen's video hits the nail on the head. She's basically arguing through that whole video that you really need to be thinking about motorcycling and changing the way that you ride so that you can be safe. And that is 100% valid. I wholeheartedly believe that the average motorcyclist has way more to do with their own safety than the laws around them. However, there are some laws that add value, and I firmly believe that that licensing system adds a level of respect. It ingrains that in the rider because they start on something small, and then when they get on the fast bike, they realize how much motorcycle a 600 really is.
But I got receipts, baby. Let's talk about some statistics, and because no one gets more sexually aroused by the idea of a scatter plot graph than an EU regulator,
look at this graph.
we have great data to back up a lot of these claims. Straight from the motorcycle industry in Europe, they experienced a total number of 950,400 new motorcycle registrations in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK in the year 2022. Now, this might come as a shock to us Americans, but that's not the whole EU. There's like a whole bunch of countries in Europe. It's true, I checked. Meanwhile, here in Freedomland, for that same year, we had a total number of unit sales, not registrations because we don't have to register dirt bikes, so total sales of 558,000 motorcycles. Now, the total population of France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK is 323 million. I used the next nearest whole number because, come on, they're Europeans, so maybe we need to add one or two more, so let's call it 325 to be safe. The total population of the US is 331 million. Now, I drove my ass down to the NASA Space Center in Houston and had their leading theoretical physicist verify this fact. 325 million is a smaller number than 331 million.
Now, here's the real kick in the sack for us Americans here. In the EU, in 2020, a report came out showing that in 2018, for the entire EU, I'm talking like all 400 member countries in Liechtenstein, they had a total number of 3,526 fatalities, accounting for 15.5% of all road fatalities. Now, here in the United States in 2021, a report came out saying that we had 5,932 motorcycle fatalities, accounting for 14% of all total on-road fatalities. Now, I wrote this section of the script after I went and talked to my NASA guys, so I had to drive my ass back down to Houston, bang on the front door to double check this math, but 3,500 is a smaller number than 5,900. Now, to me, this puts a little bit of a damper on Jen's video. I'm not saying that it's wrong. She's totally right that by wearing a helmet, you increase your likelihood of surviving a wreck, and by changing your riding habits, you can decrease the likelihood of having a wreck in the first place. But the reality is, Europeans speed too. I mean, have you ever been on a French highway after lunch? And Europeans also drink and drive. I mean, have you ever been on a French highway after lunch? I wanted to come up with a third one here, but I'm just not that good a writer.
What is the cause of a larger population of riders having fewer deaths per capita? Laws. In the EU, it is illegal to ride without a helmet. That means that by default, every rider in the EU is 61% more likely to survive a wreck. Meanwhile, here in the United States, the biggest motorcycle lobbying group, the American Motorcycle Association, is fighting against helmet laws because then Harley riders couldn't hear Skynyrd blaring from their dashboard speakers.
Seriously, guys, just buy a Cardo. Link in the description down below.
Know what I mean? Know what I mean? That's nuts. That's nuts. Know what I mean? Say no more. Know what I mean?
But you also have inexperienced riders walking into a dealership and buying a leader bike. I bought my first motorcycle without a license. Let that sink in. I literally did not know how to ride a motorcycle, and I bought one anyway. I'm all for freedom and personal responsibility, but come on, people.
And here we come back to my beloved state of Texas. We have a sky that for 3 months out of the year radiates hot death down upon you for having the audacity to go outside. We have murderous pigs that want to take you out on a hike. And we have some seriously boneheaded politicians. Personally, I think our anti-lane splitting law was mostly passed here out of spite because Rep. Goulian was just sitting in his car, stuck in Austin traffic, and some motorcycle went right past him and he just said, absolutely not. The problem with outlawing splitting and filtering is A, these are not interchangeable terms, and B, you are increasing the rate at which motorcyclists are subjected to crashes, fatal or otherwise.
Let's start with A. Lane splitting is the thing you see in crazy YouTube videos of supersports zipping through highway traffic that usually ends the same way: a massive crash and a GoFundMe in the pinned comment. Splitting is the idea of a motorcycle moving between two lanes of traffic that are moving at a high rate of speed. Usually in the law, the cutoff is about 50 15 miles per hour. Filtering happens below 15 miles an hour or between stopped cars, say at a stoplight. In my opinion, it's fine to leave lane splitting outlawed because moving motorcyclists can react to changing traffic conditions. Making filtering illegal makes us sitting ducks.
Now, obviously, filtering and splitting aren't going to add much value on this country 2 lane right here, but downtown, being able to split really keeps you out of vulnerable positions. If you're stopped, you can't react to what's happening behind you. So let's say, for example, somebody's just doing this while they're driving down the road. They may not see you because they see the car in front, but you're too small to notice. They may creep up right behind you and pancake you between the car in front of them and their hood. In that situation, the only answer to that equation is to not be there. And the only way to do that is by filtering. But I'm not just talking out of my butt here with this. There actually is a study that corroborates a lot of what I'm saying.
A study by UC Berkeley from 2015 found that lane-splitting motorcyclists were injured much less frequently during their collisions involving other vehicles. Lane-splitting riders were much less likely to suffer head injury, 9% versus 17%, torso injury, 19% versus 29%, extremity injury, meaning arms and legs, 60% versus 66%, and fatal injury reduced from 3% to 1.2%. They also found that lane-splitting riders tend to be more responsible riders, traveling at lower rates of speed, wearing better safety gear, and less likely to be using alcohol before riding. Anecdotally, I can speak to that last part. The people I know who filter are responsible, and they're capable of judging for themselves whether it's safe to filter. Now, I know this is liable to be a contentious topic because America and Europe are very, very different culturally, and I'm not saying that we should just adopt Europe's laws here, but I am saying that we probably should have a national helmet law. I'm also saying we probably should have some sort of national licensing system that restricts the amount of power a new rider can buy. And I definitely think that we need national lane splitting and filtering laws to help riders protect themselves. I mean, we already do this stuff with cars. I had to go through a massive process of getting my license when I was a kid. I had to go through about 60 hours of supervised driving, recording every bit, and then I had to go take a test with the state. Now, am I saying that we need to do all of that for motorcycles? No, but you should not be legal to ride in every state in the union just because you took a class and spent 8 hours on a motorcycle in a Bass Pro Shop parking lot. Should we as motorcyclists be more responsible the way Jen suggested in her video? Yes. Could we as motorcyclists buy a bunch of fancy safety gear the way Ryan suggested in his video? Also yes. But should we have some laws on the books that allow us to be safer as riders, or in some cases, force us to be safer as riders? I think also yes. Let me know your thoughts on all of this down in the comments section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.